This is a reading from the poem of the Man God by Maria Valtorta, Volume 1, Episode 41, Part 2, 29th of January, 1944. I have here two things to tell you, and which will certainly be of interest to you, and I had decided to write them as soon as I came out of my sopor. But as there is something more urgent, I will write them later. What I wanted to tell you at the beginning is this. Today you were asking me how I had been able to find out the names of Hillel, Gamaliel, and of Shammai. It is the voice that I call the second voice which tells me these things, a voice even less audible than Jesus and the voices of other people who dictate. These are voices, I have told you, and I repeat it, with my spiritual perceiving, which my spiritual hearing perceives as being identical to human voices. I hear them as kind or angry voices, strong or weak, joyful or sad, as if one spoke very close to me. The second voice, instead, is like a light, an intuition that speaks in my spirit. In, not to, my spirit. It is an indication. So, while I was approaching the group of the disputant parties, and I did not know who was the illustrious personage who was disputing so heatedly beside an old man, this internal something said to me, Gamaliel, Hillel. Yes, first Gamaliel, and then Hillel. I have no doubt about it. While I was wondering who they were, the internal monitor pointed out the third, unpleasant individual to me, just as Gamaliel was calling him by name, and I was thus able to learn who was the man with the Pharisaic appearance. Today, this internal monitor makes me understand that I was seeing the universe after its death. The same happens many times in visions. It is this monitor who makes me understand certain details which I would not be able to grasp by myself, and which are necessary for comprehension. I do not know whether I have made myself clear, but I am stopping because Jesus is beginning to speak. 22nd of February, 1944. Jesus says, Little John, be patient. There is something else, and let us do it to please your spiritual director and complete the work. I want this work to be handed in tomorrow, Ash Wednesday. I want you to complete this task because I want you to suffer with me. Let us go back, far back. Let us go back to the temple where I, a 12-year-old boy, am disputing. Nay, let us go back to the roads which take one to Jerusalem, and from Jerusalem to the temple. See Mary's distress when she realized, after the groups of men and women had gathered together, that I was not with Joseph. She did not reproach her spouse bitterly. Every woman would have done that. You do so for much less, forgetting that man is still the head of the family. But the pain that appears on Mary's face pierces Joseph's heart more than any bitter reproach. Mary does not give vent to dramatic outbursts. You do so for much less, because you love to be noticed and pitied. But her repressed sorrow is so obvious. She starts trembling. Her face turns pale. Her eyes are wide open, and thus she arouses pity more than any outburst of tears and cries. She is no longer tired or hungry, and yet the journey was a long one, and she has not taken any food for so many hours, but she leaves everything, the bed she was preparing and the food which was ready to be handed out, and she goes back. It is night, it is dark, it does not matter. Every step takes her back to Jerusalem. She stops the caravans and pilgrims and questions them. Joseph follows her and helps her. A long day's walk back to Jerusalem, and then the feverish search in town. Where can her Jesus be? And by God's provision for many hours, she will not know where to look for me. To look for a child in the temple does not make sense. What could a child be doing in the temple? At most, if he had got lost in town, and his little steps had brought him back, he would have cried for his mother, and thus would have attracted the attention of people and of the priests, who would have taken the necessary steps to find the parents by means of announcements left at the gates. But there was no announcement. No one in town knew anything of this child. Beautiful, blonde, strong. There are so many like that. It is too little to enable anyone to say, I saw him. He was there or there. Then, after 3 days, the symbol of 3 other days of future anguish, Mary, exhausted, enters the temple, walks along the yards and the halls. Nothing. She runs, the poor mother, whenever she hears the voice of a child, Even the bleating of the lambs gives her the impression that she hears her creature weeping and looking for her. But Jesus is not weeping. He is teaching. All of a sudden, from beyond the barrier of a large group of people, she hears his voice saying, "These stones will vibrate." She endeavors to make her way through the crowd, and succeeds after much effort. There is her son, standing in the midst of the doctors, with his arms stretched out. Mary is the prudent virgin, but this time anxiety overcomes prudence. It is a hurricane that demolishes everything. She runs to her son, embraces him, lifting him off the stool and putting him down on the ground, and she exclaims, "Oh, why have you done this to us? For 3 days we have been looking for you. Your mummy is dying with pain. Son, your father is exhausted with fatigue. Why, Jesus?" You do not ask why of him who knows. Why he behaved in a certain way. You do not ask those with a vocation, why. They leave everything to follow the voice of God. I was wisdom, and I knew. I was called to a mission, and I was fulfilling it. Above the earthly father and mother, there is God, the divine Father. His interests are above ours. His affections are superior to everything else. And I tell my mother. I finished teaching the doctors with the lesson to Mary, the Queen of Doctors, and she has never forgotten it. The sun began to shine again in her heart, now that she had me, humble and obedient beside her, but my words are deeply rooted in her mind. There will be much sunshine, and many clouds will gather in the sky during the next 21 years. I will still be on the earth, and great joys and many tears will alternate in her heart during the next 21 years. But never again will she ask, "My son, why have you done this to us?" O insolent men, learn your lesson. I directed and enlightened the vision, because you, little John, are not able to do anything further. Now pay attention to what I say. I want this booklet to be made up as follows. First sorrow, presentation in the temple. Second sorrow, stay in Egypt. Third sorrow, Jesus lost in the temple. Fourth sorrow, the death of Saint Joseph. Fifth sorrow, my departure from Nazareth. Then the dictation dated 10th of February, 1944. Sixth sorrow, the description of the vision dated 13th of February. 4 points. The synagogue, the house in Nazareth, Jesus' sermon in the synagogue, the conversation with his mother after escaping from Nazareth. Seventh sorrow, the vision dated 14th of February. Then the dictation dated 15th February. Then the dictation dated 16th February. Eighth sorrow, the supper at Passover. Ninth sorrow, the Passion taking the vision dated 11th of February 1943 and connecting it with the one dated 18th of February. 10th sorrow, the burial of Jesus, 19th of February. Then the vision and dictation dated 21st of February. Vision and dictation dated 22nd February as far as the point indicated. The other dictation on the finding of Jesus in the temple is to be put in its place in the third sorrow. First, the Father will make the usual booklet for himself and for you, and you will correct it so that there is not even one error in it. Then he will make the copies he wants for other people. Of course, each vision is to be accompanied by its dictation. The Father wanted everything for Easter. I wanted it as preparation for Easter, and I am having it handed to you today because it is already 4:30 p.m. of Ash Wednesday, the first day of Lent. Set to work, children, and may you be blessed, and may those be blessed who will accept the gift with simple hearts and faith. The fire which the Father wished today will light up in them. The world will not change in its cruelty. It is too corrupt. But they will be comforted, and they will feel the thirst for God, the incentive to holiness, rise within themselves. Go in peace, little John. Your Jesus thanks you and blesses you.